Okay, so with the Sharks season coming to a close officially as of yesterday, obviously I made the video on them losing to the Golden Knights in the final game. I thought I'd talk a little bit about just maybe, how it went the whole season and debriefing and reviewing. And I mean, yeah, it was a bad season. We finished seventh place in the West. However, I'm not going to discredit the good things. For example, Patrick Marleau breaking the record for all time games played in the NHL. The fact that we had a good week where we were only 1 point out of the playoffs. We couldn't get over the top, but it's still something, little victories like that are still something to cheer about. So, the story of the Sharks season was the goaltending. The goaltending was really, really interesting, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I think the goaltending had really good moments, and it was really interesting because to start the season, the Sharks had this rotation of Martin Jones and Devin Dubnyk. It wasn't exactly 50-50 split. I think Martin Jones played, pretty significantly more than Dubnyk, but there was a stretch of games where Dubnyk played a lot. So definitely something interesting. However, Dubnyk was traded around the midseason deadline, so he was, off the team, and the Sharks needed a solution. So I thought that was interesting just to bring up. Dubnyk did not end up having a good year. He was 3-9 with an 8.98 save percentage. Jones ended up being 15-13, so obviously significantly more playing time, and 15-13, and then 4 OT. So Martin Jones is really interesting, and one guy I want to emphasize really quick. I mean, he had that great week. He was one of the best goaltenders considered in the NHL. He was getting like national attention from the hockey world. But the Sharks, they had this momentum and they couldn't get over the top. They were 1 point out of the playoff spot for a little bit. So yeah, they made a lot of transactions as well, which were pretty interesting too. Nothing too significant, nothing, like team changing. But with Dubnyk getting traded, the Sharks had Josef Korzeniowski and Alexei Melnichuk coming in to kind of support Jones. And I think they did well. They did so well. I mean, Josef Korzeniowski only won 3 games. He lost 5. But I mean, you're taking in this difficult spot. And Melnichuk only got 1 start. The player of the season, which was actually, this is not my opinion, the Sharks actually, announced this, was Evander Kane. He was good. He was really good. He played in all 56 games, 22 goals, 27 assists, and 49 points total, and a -1 plus-minus. And I think we all had big expectations from him this season. He is always a really prevalent player, very aggressive player, never afraid to fight. And yeah, Tomas Hertl had a good year too with 19 goals. Logan Couture had 17. Only 7 from Burns. And I think the biggest disappointment was Carlson, who had only 8 goals, which, isn't terrible, but with the type of contract he's on and the legacy he holds, it's a little bit different. The Sharks' best month was March. They were 8-7-2 in the month of March. Their worst month probably had to be April. I mean, they were 5-9-1. May, they only played like 6 games in May, but they only won 1 game in the month of May, 1-3-2. And their final record was 21-28-7. And their road record was 10-15-3, and their home record was 11-13-4. Like I said, 7th place in the Western Division, which was a weird division this year because of COVID and everything. They were only ahead of the Anaheim Ducks, and besides that, no one behind them. But I mean, it was a bad season. I'm not going to sugarcoat it whatsoever. But Patrick Marleau, towards the end of the season, broke the record for the most NHL games played. That was amazing. It almost like made me emotional just seeing like records be broken right in front of my eyes on my favorite team with my favorite player. So that was pretty cool. And we didn't finish well, but we proved that we need to make some sort of changes, and we definitely need to take significant action in making this team better. In terms of our signings, I think some of the most significant ones, Kevin LeBanc, 4-year contract, but that was back in October of 2020. But as of May 12th, just actually yesterday, right? Alexander Barabanov, which was a big one because I think he's pretty good. So that's good. In terms of awards, Logan Couture got West Star of the Month. That was back in March. He had a pretty good year. Martin Jones got Second Star of the Week, April 5th. That's what I was talking about. Like that 1 week where Martin Jones was just crazy good, and so that was pretty interesting. With the COVID season, it was probably a little bit more depressing just because the Sharks were didn't allow fans for a good portion of the season up until recently. Wasn't able to go to any games in San Jose, but I did go to that one in Arizona. So pretty interesting. So anyways, guys, that's gonna do it. The Sharks missed the playoffs for the second year in a row. Not a good year. But we have things to change. I hope the Sharks front office can realize that, make changes, and get us back to relevance. So let me know your thoughts, and that's going to do for the Sharks season. I want to thank you all for sticking with me. I recapped all 56 games from start to finish. It's not necessarily easy making a 5-minute video on every single game, but I'm really happy that you guys were able to watch them and keep watching them and experience it with me. So it was definitely fun despite the Sharks being kind of a bad team. So anyways, see you guys later. Go Sharks.